Today I'm going to show you how to make one of my favorite Mexican stews. So stick around. Welcome back to No Recipes. I'm Mark Matsumoto, and I'm here to show you how to elevate your everyday meals. So smack that subscribe button and ring that bell so you don't miss out. I know you're probably a little surprised to see me doing Mexican food on here after all the Japanese recipes I've been doing. But I grew up in a small ag town in Northern California, and Mexican food is what I crave when I need a little comfort in my life. With big hunks of pork simmered in char-grilled chiles and tomatillos, chile verde is about as comforting as it gets, and it's one of my all-time favorite stews. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it, so let's have a look at our ingredients. For the meat, I'm using 1.8 kilograms or about 4 pounds of pork shoulder, and I'm gonna season it with 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. For the vegetables, I'm using 600 grams or 20 ounces of poblano chilies, 140 grams or 5 ounces of jalapenos, 375 grams or about 2 small onions, and 40 grams, which is about 1 head of garlic. You can't make chile verde without tomatillos, which are a distant cousin of tomatoes. The fruit are wrapped in a papery skin, and they have a bright acidic taste and vegetal flavor when picked green, kinda like an unripe tomato. These ones are particularly small and about the size of a cherry tomato, but they're usually closer to the size of a golf ball. Finally, for the chile, I've got 4 cups of low-sodium chicken broth, 2 teaspoons of honey, 1 teaspoon of Mexican oregano, 1 bay leaf, 25 grams of cilantro, and some queso fresco for garnish. Let's start by preheating the oven to as high as it'll go. Mine tops out at 280 degrees Celsius, which is about 540 degrees Fahrenheit. But if you have a broiler mode on your oven, that's the best way to go. For the pork shoulder, I'm gonna cut it into large 2 to 3 inch cubes. It doesn't need to be exact, but you do want to get them all around the same size. Like all stews, you want to use meat with a lot of fat and connective tissue because this is what's gonna break down as you braise it, making it tender and juicy. Okay, let's get the pork into the bowl and sprinkle it evenly with salt. I probably should have used a bigger bowl for this, but this is the largest one I own. Then I'm gonna sprinkle on the cumin, and then the cinnamon. Finally, I'm gonna drizzle on the vegetable oil and mix everything together until the seasonings are evenly distributed. Okay, let's set this aside and prep the veggies. First, I'm gonna smash a head of garlic to break up the cloves, but there's no need to peel them. Then I'm gonna trim the ends off of the onions and then slice them in half before peeling them. These get lined up on a sheet pan along with the garlic. Then I'm gonna line the poblanos up in a single layer and arrange the jalapenos between the gaps. Now you'll want to use a knife or toothpick to poke holes in all of the peppers, or they're gonna explode and make a mess in your oven. Okay, let's get these into the oven, and I'm gonna let them roast until the skins get puffed up and they just start to char. This took about 6 minutes in my oven, but your mileage may vary. These are looking good, so let's pull them out of the oven and flip them over. These smell smoky and amazing already, but they're about to get even better. Let's get these back into the oven for another 6 minutes or so, and when you pull them out, they should be nice and blistered like this. Okay, let's peel the tomatillos while we wait for these to cool off a bit. The first thing you need to do is peel the husks off. The fruit inside should be firm and shiny, so if you have any that are mushy or funny colored, you'll want to throw those out. As I mentioned before, these are on the small side, so this is gonna take me a while. Okay, I've finally gotten them all peeled, so now let's wash them. Tomatillos are covered in a waxy sap that makes them sticky, and you'll want to remove it before you cook them. The best way to do this is to rinse them with cold water until they're no longer soapy. This will probably require a few changes of water. Once they're no longer slick and slippery, I'm gonna drain them well, dump them onto a sheet pan, and spread them out evenly. This goes into the oven to roast until the tops are nice and charred. This took about 10 minutes in my oven. I was being lazy, but I probably should have poked holes in these too, because a few of them popped and it turned the inside of my oven into a hot, sticky mess. Okay, these are looking perfect, so let's get them out of the oven and put them on a rack to cool for a bit. While we wait for those to cool, the peppers and aromatics have cooled enough to handle, so I'm gonna start by peeling the garlic. They may look a little burnt around the edges, but this is what's gonna give our sauce a wonderful depth of flavor, so don't worry about it. Now we want to stem and seed the peppers. I recommend wearing gloves for this, especially if your jalapenos are spicy. Capsaicin is the compound responsible for making chili spicy, and it's mostly concentrated in the light-colored membranes holding the seeds onto the pod. I also like to peel away any loose bits of waxy skin, but you don't have to get all of it. Once they're cleaned, toss them into a blender or food processor. Although they're smaller, the cleaning process is the same for the jalapenos. These ones are particularly small, but they're as spicy as Thai chilies, so I'm only gonna add a few. Most jalapenos are pretty mild though, so add a few and taste the sauce before you add all of them. You can always add more heat, but once it's blended, you can't remove it, so proceed with caution. Now I'm gonna add the garlic and onions to the blender. And when the tomatillos have cooled enough so they won't melt your blender, add those in as well. If you have a small blender, you may need to do this in batches. It looks like I have a bit more room left, so I'm gonna roughly chop up the cilantro and add that into here as well. Okay, let's get this onto the base and blend it until it's nice and smooth. By the way, with a few less poblanos, a squeeze of lime, and a dash of salt, this is essentially salsa verde, so I'll include a link to my recipe for that in the description below. Give this a taste now and decide whether you want to add more jalapenos or not. Well, it took a while, but our prep's finally done, so let's start cooking. I have a large Dutch oven that's been preheating over medium-high heat until it's nice and hot. Then I'm gonna add the pork shoulder in a single layer. It probably won't all fit in one go, so divide it up and don't overcrowd your pot. Once the pork is nice and brown on one side, flip it over and brown the other side. The browned pork juices have undergone the Maillard reaction, which is what gives a good chile its complex flavors. That's why it's so important to be patient here, so you get as much browning as possible. Once the second side is nice and brown, transfer the pork to a bowl and fry the remaining pork. When the second batch is done browning, I'm gonna add the chicken stock and return the rest of the pork to the pot along with any collected juices. Then I'm gonna add the oregano, bay leaf, honey, and salsa. The small amount of honey isn't enough to make it taste sweet, but it does help round out the sharp acidity of the tomatillos, and it's one of my secrets for a great chile verde. Now I'm just gonna give this a stir and let it simmer uncovered over medium-low heat. Once it comes to a boil and you start getting scum floating to the top, use a spoon to skim it off. Now you've got some time to kill, but be sure to stir it periodically to ensure it doesn't burn to the bottom of the pot. After about an hour and a half, you'll start seeing deep pools of dark oil forming. I personally like to skim this off because the chile is going to be rich enough without it. At this point, give it a taste and add some more salt if it needs it. The acidity should have mellowed out by now, but if you feel like it's still too sour, you can add a little more honey as well. After about 2 to 2.5 hours, your pork should be tender enough that you can mash it with a fork. That's when you know your chile verde is done. Okay, this is tasting great, and I can't even begin to describe how good it smells, so let's plate it up. I'm usually not into cooking things that take more than an hour to prepare, but I make an exception for this. It took me about 3.5 hours from start to finish, but looking at this now, it was worth every minute. Like most stews, chile verde tastes better the second day, so I recommend making it a day in advance and reheating it before you eat it. I like to garnish this with some red onions for texture and color, and I have some homemade queso fresco that I'm gonna crumble on top. It mellows out the heat and acidity while making it a little extra rich. A handful of cilantro is gonna give it a pop of color and freshness, and our chile verde is done. The contrast of the melt-in-your-mouth pork and spicy tangy sauce is irresistibly good and maintains a paradoxical balance between rich and refreshing. The char-roasted veggies contribute a wonderful smoky flavor, and all that Maillard browning lends this enough natural umami that some might wonder if you snuck in some MSG. Today I'm serving it with some homemade blue corn tortillas, but it's also fantastic with bread or poured over rice. This chile verde does take a little time to prepare, but it's the perfect way to warm up a cold house, so I hope you'll give it a try. If you enjoyed this video and want to see me do more Mexican recipes, let me know by giving this a big thumbs up and by sharing it with all your friends that love a good chile. As always, I want to thank my amazing patrons on Patreon who help to support this video. If you're learning something new from my recipes, I hope you'll consider clicking the link up here to join the No Recipes crew and help support our future videos. Well, I'm gonna go toast up some more tortillas and stuff myself with this chile, but I'll catch you in the next one.